Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to this Sports Insiders The Spin. I'm Ali Melendez. Lots to talk about together, so let's get right to it. Now, there are so many glorious matchups across the board in football this week. I'm not going to waste any more time. I want to get into the action, starting with the college game, where if I didn't know that we're in September, I would swear that it's New Year's Day. Starting to feel like New Year's Day outside, and we should be getting ready for the granddaddy of them all. Now look, I can go on and on, but instead of rambling here, which I already am, I'm gonna hand it over to Drew Butler and Gabe Ikard ASAP. What's going on, guys?
What's up, Allie? Great to be back with you right here on The Spin. Sports Insiders, Drew Butler and Gabe Ikard here to preview week 4 of the college football season. And Gabe, where you're sitting at right now, the great state of Oklahoma, that will be the epicenter of college football this weekend. We got 2 games to preview coming up in just a bit. But first, let's head up north for a classic Big Ten rivalry, I guess you could call it now. The 11th-ranked Southern Cal Trojans are heading to the Big House to take on the 18th-ranked Michigan Wolverines. This kickoff is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. And how about this? USC, a 6-point road favorite. This over-under sits at 46.5 points.
That is a big number.
Yeah.
For the Trojans, but it doesn't scare me. I'm going to lay the points with USC. Alex Orji's going to get the start at quarterback for Michigan. Does that all of a sudden make them into some dynamic offense? I find that hard to believe. I do expect their rushing attack to be more effective with him, but USC is going to score some points.
Yeah.
Michigan's defense is really good. They're going to view this as a redemption opportunity after what happened to them against Texas. But Lincoln Riley, with 2 weeks to prepare, I think USC is going to score some points. And I just do not trust that Michigan offense to produce enough explosive plays to keep pace with Miller Moss and that really talented wide receiver core for the Trojans. So I'm going to lay the points with USC.
Yeah, pretty interesting line here. You would expect USC in their first ever Big Ten road game to be maybe even an underdog, especially against the defending national champions. We all know Michigan looked a little rough when they got boat raced in their own stadium against Texas just a couple of weeks ago. But historically, when these two teams match up, yeah, it's in the Rose Bowl. No more. USC coming off a bye week, making their first Big Ten football debut. And these are 2 blue bloods in the world of college football. So it's sure to be a really exciting matchup. Michigan's still searching for answers on the offensive side of the ball. Gabe, you mentioned it. Alex Orji named the starter this week. Davis Warren, after throwing 3 interceptions against Arkansas State, he heads to the bench. They're trying to find out ways to create some consistency on that side of the ball. And on the road, how will USC be affected jumping into the Big House? I love Miller Moss. I mean, you look at an Alex Orji versus Miller Moss matchup, you certainly give a huge advantage to the USC Trojans. I think another great matchup is offensive play caller and head coach for USC, Lincoln Riley, going up against Wink Martindale, the new defensive coordinator at Michigan. That can certainly be one to watch out for. USC's defense been a pretty pleasant surprise. I know it's a small sample size through 2 weeks, but they blanked Utah State. They won that game 48-0. And I don't think Michigan's offense should pose too much of a threat to this USC defense. The Wolverines are going to want to run the football game. If USC can limit the big plays in the run game, I'm going with you. I'm laying the 6 points for the Trojans as well. I think coming off that bye week will prove to be a huge advantage for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. So I will lay 6 points as well. All right, let's look at a big Big 12 matchup. It's a top 15 matchup. The 12th-ranked Utah Utes are heading to Stillwater to take on the 14th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. 4 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. This one's on Fox. Gabe, Utah, a 2.5-point road favorite. This total a bit higher at 52 points.
Stillwater is not an easy place to play, and it is going to be hot. This one on that turf in Stillwater, which gets about as hot as the surface of the sun in my experience. But sounds like Utah's going to have Cam Rising back, and I think he'll be the difference in this football game. Oklahoma State has struggled to get Ollie Gordon going early in the season. Now, that happened a year ago, and then he took off. I just don't think Utah is the type of defense that all of a sudden Oklahoma State's offense is going to figure everything out and get Ollie Gordon going. Alan Bowman's going to have to make a bunch of plays throwing the football in this game. And I trust Cam Rising. I trust how Utah is built as a football team. And I think that they will be able to have success running the football against an Oklahoma State defense that has given up already quite a few big plays this season. I mean, Arkansas, still unbelievable that they lost that football game to me. I mean, they gashed Oklahoma State repeatedly with the run game. I don't love that I'm going against Mike Gundy as a home underdog because I think he's a heck of a football coach, but I just think Utah's the more complete team, especially with Cam Rising at the quarterback position. So I'll lay the points with the Utes.
Utah's first ever trip to Stillwater, Oklahoma is coming up this weekend. And as you mentioned, reports are that Cam Rising, Utah's quarterback, will in fact play. He's been dealing with a finger injury, Gabe. I think he had to get some stitches, so it sounds like he will be back in the starting lineup. Oklahoma State's offense, that's the story right here. They're averaging 42.7 points per game so far through the first 3 weeks, but Utah's defense will be a big test for them. Will they be able to limit Oklahoma State's defense? Will they be able to limit the big plays, the chunk explosive plays from that Utah offense? You mentioned that Arkansas game, Gabe. They went back and forth, especially in that fourth quarter. A more mobile quarterback that Arkansas has than Alan Bowman and Cam Rising, both guys who want to sit in the pocket and to deliver the ball deep downfield. However, Oklahoma State, Gabe, 5-0 straight up and against the spread in Big 12 home openers. That's exactly what this is. You look back to a year ago, Utah was not that great on the road. I love a home dog. I love a home conference dog. Give me Mike Gundy in that underdog spot, especially at home on that surface that's as hot as the face of the sun, Gabe Ikard says. So I'll take Oklahoma State plus 2.5. All right, Gabe, we see the background right there in your home office / studio. No surprise, you are a Sooner at heart, and buddy, it's a big one in Norman this weekend. Oklahoma's first ever home SEC game, and they welcome in a top 10 opponent. These 6th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers are heading to Norman to take on the 15th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC Saturday night. Tennessee, a 7-point favorite. The over-under in this one, 57.5 points.
It's going to be absolutely electric in Norman. You mentioned it, OU's first home SEC game and the program's first SEC game in general.
Yeah.
Also, Josh Heupel was the quarterback of a national championship team for Oklahoma. He's coming back for the first time since Bob Stoops let him go. There are all kinds of fantastic storylines leading into this game. College game day is going to be here. ABC primetime. This game is exactly why you go to a program like Oklahoma. Those storylines will not determine the football game. This game will be determined at the line of scrimmage. And I think Tennessee is better than Oklahoma at the line of scrimmage. I know that a lot of people are excited to watch what Nico Iamaleava does and what Jackson Arnold does at the quarterback position, but I just think that Tennessee, especially their defensive line, I think that defensive line can get after an Oklahoma offensive line that has not played up to its standard so far this season, and frankly, it's because they're just really beat up. So I like Tennessee to win the football game. I will lay the points with the Volunteers. I just think they get it done at the point of attack. And this is a type of football game that, even though I think OU's defense is going to play really well and make things more difficult on Tennessee's offense than people may think, I just don't know if the Sooners are going to be able to move the ball as consistently as they need to in this game. And then they have really, really struggled to produce explosive plays offensively so far this season. And Tennessee has not struggled to do that. So I'm going to lay the points with the Volunteers, as much pain as it causes me.
Yeah, I know that cuts you deep there, a proud Oklahoma alumni. But if I could tell you one thing that could give you maybe a little bit of hope heading into Saturday night. It's that the public is going to be all over Tennessee in this matchup. And why? Well, it's because of their prolific offense. Gabe, they're averaging 63.7 points per game through the first 3 weeks of this season. They've scored 69 points. They scored 51 points in a neutral site against a top 25 opponent in NC State. Last week, they scored 71 points, 65 in the first half of the game against Kent State. So everybody is going to be loving what Nico Iamaleava, Josh Heupel, and that Volunteers offense can be capable of doing. However, you mentioned first SEC home game, first SEC game for Oklahoma. It will be an electric atmosphere. There's no doubt about that. A night game, going to be a tough spot to be in. College game day will be there. And how about Oklahoma? They forced 10 turnovers through the first 3 games of the season. They're +8 in the turnover ratio. You turn the ball over, I don't care how many points you score. It will be a closer football game than people might think. A matchup that is certainly swinging in Tennessee's favor is the quarterback, Nico. I think probably a little bit more trustworthy than Jackson Arnold so far through this season. And you mentioned maybe some of the issues with Oklahoma's offensive line. Tennessee's defensive front. They've got depth. They're rotating those guys. One of the more elite units in the SEC. So that could certainly provide some issues for Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold having some protection. How much will Josh Heupel's return to Norman mean? I'm not so sure. Yes, he coached there for 10 years. Yes, he was an all-time great at quarterback on a national championship team. And that video is going viral, Gabe. I know you've seen it. They're replaying Bob Stoops letting Josh Heupel go when he had to fire him. Now he's coming back. Is it a revenge game? I don't know. I just like Tennessee in the trenches, as you mentioned. Offensive production, if they don't turn the ball over, I'm with you. I will lay the 7 points with the Tennessee Volunteers as well. Going to be an awesome game. Know you're going to be right there on the sidelines, Gabe Ikard. So I'm fired up to recap what goes down next week when we're right back here on The Spin. That's it for week 4 of the college football slate. We look forward to seeing you back right here next week. All lines, of course, provided by Bet Online. Allie, for Gabe Ikard, I'm Drew Butler. We'll throw it back to you.
Awesome. Well, great stuff as always. Our very own Drew Butler, Gabe Ikard, always holding it down in the college space. We appreciate the insight. Now listen, I am excited for all the action. I'm sure you are. And as you know, the odds here on The Spin are provided by Bet Online. So I wanted to tell you that Bet Online has a ton of great contests available for the NFL season. You've got to be sure to head on over right now and check them all out. I mean, they literally have something for everyone. Hey, people. Don't miss out. Cash in if you can. BetOnline is giving out millions to somebody, and why not you? All right, back to the NFL, shall we? Lots going on, so let's send it over to the guys. Our very own Drew Butler, veteran of 11 NFL seasons, Anthony Becht, and 2-time Super Bowl champ, Jonathan Casillas. Welcome back, guys. Great to see you as always.
Thanks so much, Allie. Back once again to take a look at week 3 of the NFL season. Drew Butler here, joined alongside my guys, Anthony Becht and Jonathan Casillas. It's The Spin, Sports Insiders. And guys, week 2 featured tons of upsets across the league. Week 1 was the week of the favorites. Week 2, the underdogs started barking back. So let's go ahead and take a look at the week 3 slate. Starting off with a couple of 2-0 teams, the Houston Texans heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. This is a 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Anthony, the Texans are 2.5-point road favorites. The total here is 45 points.
Yeah, you know, the beginning of the NFL season is always tough for a guy like me because I'm a tape guy. I look at what's been done on the field, but it seems like the trends and all these different handicapping things come into play early on in the season. But I'm going to stick to my guns on what I see on the field because, you know, I think sometimes we don't necessarily get exactly what we get long-term from some of these teams and what they showed. And I think here's an example with a team like Minnesota. I mean, man, like, out the gate, Sam Darnold's been kind of a comeback player, story of the year so far. They beat the 49ers, who we all think is one of the best teams in the NFL. But, you know, when you really look at that game, if you take away that 97-yard bomb to Jefferson, 171 yards passing by Darnold, I know they are rushing for 128 yards, and I think that's been the key for them having success because of that balance that they've had on offense. I look on the other side with Houston, you know, a tough game against the Colts, you know, divisional game. Yep. You know, they duked it out. They went on the road. They got the job done. And then they bounce back and they play, you know, listen, maybe the worst team or one of the worst teams in football, the Bears, but they do have a really good defense. The Chicago Bears do. So there are some things, but man, you look at the weapons outside of just Stroud, Collins, Diggs, Dell, Schultz. I mean, there's just so much there. Yeah, no Mixon. He's probably out this week. They'll probably sit him for a week, maybe two, just to kind of, a non-serious ankle injury, or even if he does play, he'll be a little bit on the side of not 100%. But I really look at their defense, 3 turnovers in 2 weeks. They've only given up an average of 254 yards the first 2 games. To me, I just feel like there's a little bit of a flash in the pan with Minnesota. I think it's a great start for them. It's a great story. I just going on with history. Sam Darnold's got to come back down to planet Earth at some point. He is very turnover prone in his career. Again, I hate going back. It sounds like analytical talk, but that's what he's been. I got to roll with the Texans here, as the favorite on the road. It's always tough. It seems like this is not a trend early on the season. That's been great, but I'm gonna lay those points and go with Houston.
Anthony, I beg to differ, man. The Vikings with Brian Flores leading that defensive attack, 6 sacks last week. These guys are, I think they might be a little bit better than we all think, maybe even, a team that can, position themselves to sneak into the playoffs with a late run. Led by their defense. Yeah, Sam Darnold, he's Sam Darnold, but he did add some rushing yards. They rushed for over 100 yards last week. This is a team that I think are going to surprise some people. Obviously, they're 2-0, beating the Giants and the San Francisco 49ers already. And then Houston Texans. Look, C.J. Stroud, he is a dynamite quarterback, second-year guy, just kind of moving along as he did his rookie year. Now he has Stephon Diggs added to the combination of Nico Collins and Tank Dell. You saw Nico Collins catch, bro. Like, these receivers are incredible. But for me, I think the Vikings just are a little bit better. They're really good at home. I don't know if you've ever been there, Anthony, but that whole skull thing, it's kind of captivating, and they start to rally, behind their team, especially if they get a win early. Mixon being now is huge for me. He rushed for over 100 yards week 1 with the Houston Texans. I think they will miss him against what Brian Flores will do against this Houston Texans offense. I think he's multifaceted. I think he can give them a wrench that they maybe never seen and maybe won't be prepared for. So look, I'm gonna go ahead and take the home dog and go with the Vikings at home, fellas.
Yeah, as mentioned, guys, both of these teams 2-0. I love the coaching matchup between Kevin O'Connell, who was able to flex his muscles and show off his offensive scheme against the 49ers a week ago, and DeMeco Ryans, obviously a longtime all-pro type linebacker in the NFL. That Houston Texans defense is extremely fast, extremely physical. They fly around the football field. And then you look at the quarterback, Sam Darnold. Yes, he's off to a pretty good start, as Anthony mentioned, but history will show you that he is turnover happy. In C.J. Stroud for Houston, easily one of the most promising young quarterbacks that we've seen in quite some time. Houston's won 2 close games. Yes, they got that divisional road win against the Colts in week 1. They were able to hold on against the lowly Bears at home in Sunday Night Football. I'm just really surprised the Vikings are a home underdog here. Question marks around the availability of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison coming up this weekend. Those are their 2 premier outside threats on the perimeter. Anthony, you almost talked me into hearing your rationale, taking the Texans, laying the 2.5. But Jonathan, I have it in my notes right here. It's a tough place to play. US Bank Stadium, certainly a home field advantage. I think the Vikings can steal one more and then maybe come back down to earth. So I'll take the 2.5 points with the home dog. All right, let's go to a great matchup in the afternoon slate. The Baltimore Ravens staring at a potential 0-3 start, heading to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys, 4:25 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Right now, Anthony, the Ravens are 1-point favorites on the road. This total was a bit higher at 48.5 points.
Yeah, listen, 2 teams right now that are embarrassed. The Ravens are embarrassed because they're 0-2. They basically, been in both games. They had a big lead, 10 points in the fourth quarter against the Raiders at home. I have no idea how you blow that. But, I just feel like the sense of urgency now is really up for the Ravens. On the flip side, you got a Dallas Cowboys team that was thoroughly embarrassed at home. I mean, the Saints are an improved team. Obviously, first-time play caller, Kubiak's done a nice job for them, scoring a ton of points in 2 weeks. But to really take it to Dallas like that, scoring every possession, it kind of exposed their defense a little bit. I mean, Dallas gave up 190 yards rushing in this football game. And you look at the Ravens, they average about 170. That's a problem, especially when you add in the quarterback to the scenario, right? So who can really get out of trouble more? Who can create more in those moments? And you think about being pinned up, your back against the wall. Dallas 1-1, the Ravens. Like, this is a critical game for them. They're well coached. I just think it's always something with the Baltimore defense where they're trying to make you one-sided. Being that they can stop the run, Dak's arm the whole entire game, is that feasible? Yeah, he's good, but again, it's tough. It's tough to go on the road now. Playing in Dallas, I think last year we always kept talking about Dallas never loses at home. Well, they get shellackled. This is a tough spot. I think this is going to be an instant classic game. That's just my opinion. I got to roll with the Ravens, man. I'm going to roll with desperation and urgency over maybe a blowout where you can still play good and maybe not win the game. So I'm going to lay the 1 point and go with the Ravens.
Yeah, Anthony, I hear you, man. 11 penalties last week for the Ravens and only 3 of 11 on third down. They had over 450 yards the first week, lost to the Chiefs, 380 yards versus the Raiders, lost to them as well. They have to figure out a way to finish games. Lamar Jackson, I think he's going to get better as the season goes on. Derrick Henry will have his first 100-yard rushing game against the Cowboys in Dallas. Last week, it was so fun watching the Saints beat up on the Cowboys, fellas. I enjoyed watching that score as the Saints just kept on rolling and rolling and rolling. Dak threw 2 interceptions. I don't expect that to be the case for Dak this year. I do think the Cowboys are a good team, and Dak's a good quarterback that will protect the ball. But I think the Ravens are going to look at that rushing analysis that they got from the Saints film, and I think they're going to scheme up ways to put over 200 rushing yards in Dallas and create a very lopsided game, I think, early, and then the Cowboys might come back, I think, maybe late in the game. But I think the Ravens win this one handily on the road, fellas.
You want to talk about urgency. Obviously, Baltimore, not the start that they had hoped for to this season. They lose the season opener on Thursday night against the Chiefs, and then they were up by 10 points in the fourth quarter at home against the Las Vegas Raiders and somehow find a way to lose that game. Guys, only one team in the last 20-plus years in the NFL has made the playoffs after an 0-3 start. That was the 2018 Houston Texans. The Baltimore Ravens have extreme urgency in this matchup. And guess who their next 2 opponents are? Oh, just the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. So an absolute gauntlet for the Baltimore Ravens to kick off this season. And yes, the Cowboys are searching for answers after they just get boat raced out of their own stadium in their home opener last week against the New Orleans Saints, whose offense looks absolutely unstoppable. You can talk about Dak. You could talk about Lamar. You could talk about Derrick Henry. The matchup that I'm looking forward to is Micah Parsons against Lamar Jackson. 2 guys who are absolute studs at their position, MVP-type caliber players. They will be going head-to-head. And I really want to see the lightning and thunder combination out of the backfield in the run game with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I think they are able to find that. Guys, the Cowboys were the favorite in this game a week ago. I think this might be a little bit of an overreaction after they looked so poorly against the Saints. So I'm rolling with the hungry one here. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, they're a short favorite, but they cannot afford to start out 0-3. So I'll take Baltimore. I'll lay the 1 point as well. All right, let's wrap things up with some Sunday night football action. Heading down to my part of the town, Atlanta, Kansas City. The Chiefs are coming into Hotlanta to take on the Falcons. As we know, 8:20 p.m. kickoff on Sunday night. Anthony, the Chiefs are a 4.5-point road favorite in prime time. This over-under is 46.5 points.
Man, a lot of tempting road favorites, obviously, to take this week. Listen, the Chiefs, to me, not having Pacheco, I think a lot of people look at that as like he's kind of a heartbeat of the football team. He gives them that push and he gives them that running game that they have. Carson Steele right now is kind of a fullback guy. I don't know how much he'll bring to the table from a running standpoint. He does run hard, and he may pop off and have a game. I kind of look at the Chiefs like this is their opportunity to like pass more. Like they got so many weapons. I feel like they're going to go out of the box and do something that traditionally they're trying to have semi-balance with Pacheco. But now it's like, hey, fair game. Like we ain't got a running back. Let's kind of open up the floodgates a little bit and pass the football. Now, Atlanta in Monday Night Football, I'll tell you, their defense looked really good. But again, I I think about offensively what they've done so far. They're kind of trending in the right direction. They're not completely there. Even Kirk Cousins said after the game, like he's still not there yet. He's hoping that this maybe triggers something. But their best drive of the game was a tempo drive in the 2-minute drill. Outside of that, pretty stagnant, right? So what happens when the Chiefs, maybe grab a little bit of a lead or potentially get up? How's that going to look? And does Kirk Cousins come through? And are they able to do what they did at the end of the Eagles game? I don't know. I just think what I've seen so far, I think without Pacheco, the Chiefs may look better in a sense that, hey, put it on Mahomes' shoulder. Let's see what happens. Again, I hate going with a road favorite again, but I just feel like the Chiefs cover this number. I'm going to lay those points, take the road favorite.
I hear you, man. But look, I don't want to take anything away from the Chiefs offense and what they've done the last few years with Isaiah Pacheco leading the way on the ground. He's not only a great running back from Jersey, of course, he's the heart and soul. He is that, like, he gets those guys fired up. He's not a big guy, but he runs hard. And I think they're going to miss him. And look, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice looks incredible, to be honest. Like, watching that kid, he looks fast, he looks dynamic, he looks like he can catch any ball. Mahomes is going to give it to him whenever they need to get it to him. But I look at the other side. We talked about Kirk Cousins last week, how he did not look comfortable. He looked a little more comfortable this week, coming off an injury, new team, new offense. I expected to kind of be slow out the gate, not as slow as the week one. But week two, they beat the Eagles on Monday Night Football, and at the end of the game, they put it together, doing some complimentary football, driving the football down the field, Cousins hitting London late on the touchdown, and then the defense with Bates sealing the game with the defensive win. I think this is a very good team. I think Atlanta, they're early. They might have some bumps and bruises. I think this is going to be another bump, but I think they're going to be able to cover the 4.5 points. So give me the home dog.
What a huge game here for the Atlanta Falcons, guys. We can always prognosticate what we think is going to happen. Everybody always talks about, the NFC South, probably the worst division in football. Through 2 weeks, the Atlanta Falcons were staring down an 0-2 start, and the Tampa Bay Bucks and the New Orleans Saints looked like total world beaters at 2-0. The Falcons get a massive come-from-behind victory on Monday Night Football to upset the Philadelphia Eagles, get themselves to 1-1. Now they welcome in the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs to Atlanta. Sunday Night Football. How will the Falcons defense defend against Kansas City, seemingly, Anthony, to your point, going more towards the pass game? No Isaiah Pacheco, as we've talked about. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still out, of course, as well. Reports are that Kareem Hunt is going to be in the building this week for a visit to maybe get him back in the fold in Kansas City. But guys, can Atlanta stack 2 primetime wins in a row to really save the start of their season? That's the big question. And for whatever reason, I feel like the national media, maybe us even included, do not give the Kansas City defense enough credit. Steve Spagnuolo, the only assistant or the only defensive coordinator in NFL history to win 4 Super Bowls. Jonathan, I think that was your coach with the New York Giants. I mean, Chris Jones, that defensive front, really, really tough. The Falcons are going to have to establish the run game. This is a big one. I think too many question marks around not having much of a rushing option for Kansas City. Atlanta keeps it close. I love primetime home underdogs. That's a DB special right there. That's a system play. In my backyard, forget about it. Falcons, give me the 4.5 points. They'll keep this one close. That should be an awesome game. Week 3 should be awesome as well, all across the league. Be sure to keep things locked in at BetOnline for all your latest lines, news, and odds. Appreciate you tuning in to The Spin. For my guys, Anthony Becht and Jonathan Casillas, I'm Drew Butler. Allie, back to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Once again, give them a hand. The guys who have been there, done that. The pros, the guys we know and love. Drew Butler, Anthony Becht, and Jonathan Casillas. Well, that is all we have for you this week, my friends. Be sure to get everything you need in the college game and, of course, in NFL right here at SportsInsider.com.